don't normally do this. I'm doing it now. I want you guys to be informed about a few things, and I know this is unusual. It is highly unusual, especially coming from me, because I normally don't hop on air for any reason. This document is opened by another project. What other project? Forgive my mumbling, I'm searching through some things because I've received, going over some things here, and there are some things I want you guys to know. I certainly do hope that everybody is prepared and truly prepped by way of the heart. There are some situations that have formed, and the direction of those situations is quite obvious. I'm not going to talk about the situations except to say this. Of all the people you guys know, encourage them by way of the word and their steadfastness in their faith. Because losing one's footing is an understatement. There are certain parties who have agreed to expose the world to several different things at one time. Personally, I think it's highly irresponsible, but inevitable. I don't think people are ready for this. I don't think they're mentally prepared for this. We could barely make it through an election without people wanting to tear each other apart. Nevertheless, almost as if Satan is attempting to absolutely go against any movement of the Lord in the earth, so are these parties deciding to go forward with some things. Now, this will involve all of us and everybody. It's going to shake some people up. Hearing about things that's one thing. Having a full conference, I mean officially, having a full conference, a full type of briefing to the public is a different subject. It's very different to be exposed to things. That's totally different, because then you cannot debate about what you are seeing. So if you could encourage all of those you know who love the Lord, encourage them. Encourage them for real. And make sure that you have a good footing by way of your of your faith and by way of trust. In fact, any portion of your trust that may be lacking with the Lord, begin to work on that immediately. Immediately. Those who don't have trust in the Lord, I just don't see them coming through this unscathed. The stakes are high, and it is, this is a very different world we live in, and this is going to add yet another element of complication, if you would, to one's walk, all right? Even to those of us who encourage other saints, it will complicate some things. It's going to be an obstacle. I just hope, I pray that you guys are ready for it. It is, as I said before, it's inevitable. I don't believe it's the right move. Nevertheless, there is, these groups are trying to stay ahead of a life-changing, life-altering event. They really are. So the season that we occupy right now, it seems to give an explanation as to some of the chaotic nature people exhibit nowadays. Certainly during this time, why people are so divided. They're polarized in one camp or the other against one another, but I can tell you this. Humanity is about to come together in a big way. Barriers are going to be thrown down. Nobody's going to care about barriers. In fact, that time where humanity becomes somewhat precious to one another, but in the wrong camp, that time is coming. That time is here. Ironically, it's not going to be, these folks, you're going to be able to notice or see them drift right through your fingers. So right now is the time to really encourage those who believe in Christ to really trust in Christ, to really depend upon his ways and to trust in Christ. It's so very important to trust in Christ Jesus, right? So that means if you have to work with people and take extra time with them, so be it. Whatever you have to do, whatever the Lord leads you to do, that you've been putting off, and maybe you didn't want to do it because it was inconvenient, whatever the case is, I would say go overboard, go above and beyond. Spend your time with those who have loose footing. You know they have loose footing. You know they could easily be beset. Spend that extra time with them. Work on your trust. Work on your own trust. All of us have areas in our lives that we can improve upon in our trust with the Lord. This is that moment to really work on that quickly. Many are walking around and they really believe they have time. God never promised us time. He never did that. None of us are promised tomorrow. Not one of us. Appreciate those the Lord put in your life today. Appreciate them. Understand that they're in your life for a reason. It's part of your refinement, part of your process. Take another look at your families and ask yourself something. Are you ready for them to depart or not? Because if you're not ready for them to depart, I can almost guarantee you there's something within you that you have not done for them. Sometimes we have no peace in situations because we could do something, but we have not done that thing. I don't know what it is for you. Now I'm reminded of a scripture. The Lord Jesus said he would come in an hour you think not. And for the most part, have you noticed how many of us have been, we're always preoccupied with, is this the hour when Jesus comes? But we're thinking about the Lord coming, right? We have been. Have you noticed that as of late, though many people try to get excited about the coming of the Lord, it's almost like something has come, causing us not to really dwell upon that. We're in his word, yes, but we're not really thinking about him coming tonight. Have you noticed that? But there was a time when people they had anticipation about the Lord's coming. That anticipation is not there. And yet the scripture says he'll come in an hour we think not. In an hour you think not. The Son of Man cometh. In an hour you're not really aware of. And it's not for the condemned right? Because we are expectant. We're on a path for the Lord's sake, for the sake of his gospel, because we believe in his gospel, and also qualify your belief in the gospel. Ask yourself something. Do you agree with the gospel or not? Folks, when you experience your friends, your family, your mentors, if you were to see them slip through the hands of faith into another doctrine, would that disturb you? And if you found yourself powerless because they're walking away into something else that God is giving you clear sight of, could you bear that? If they presented an archaeological find that is undeniable, if they presented a living being that's undeniable, just how many people would begin to reevaluate how they believe, and how many people would start believing in all these other books like Zechariah's Ascension, believing that somehow what was in those books was the truth, and what we're reading in the King James Version of the Bible is flawed. Just how many people do you trust won't go that direction? I'll tell you right now, there are a lot of Christians right now who believe in the works of Zechariah's Ascension. Right now they do. They believe that more than they do the King James Version of the Bible, so much so they point out many flaws in the Bible that they call flaws, because it's not consistent with the interpretation of a man who had a problem with the church, who had a problem with faith, who had a problem with creation. For the most part, our task has been unabated. The only thing we've dealt with were opinions. You're going to be thrust into a very different paradigm. Opinions will not matter. When something stands before you, what will you do? Encourage those around you. Waste no time. Understand the importance of you being here on this earth right now. You're here for a purpose and a cause not of your own, but you were sent here. Remember that you're ambassadors to the Lord's truth. Your life is representation of this gospel, one way or another. Understand that. Be patient with people. Let them decide. Never force their decision. And all those who need help, take the time to help them. It'll require an extra step for most of us, but that extra step is worth it. Now is that time to really focus intently upon our faith, upon the truth of the Word, and begin to walk these things out, having nothing left in reserve, but to follow Christ wholeheartedly. Pick that guard that possibly you have up, get rid of it. The reservations, cast them out. Walk behind Christ and walk closely with all of your heart, that you may be kept in these hours to come. You don't do this to save your life, because you've been granted eternal life by the Messiah. Do what you do out of love for the Messiah, for what he already did for you, for what he did for so many more. Help to find those who are crying in the midst of so many. Because if they hear the word, they're going to comprehend it. It'll confirm truth within them, and they'll walk toward what they heard. You carry that word as the gospel. It is the hope. Strong opposition is being put in position. A deceit of major deceits is being put in motion. It will not be easy to deal with. Just as we were in our lives, and we have issues and problems, the greater ones are being released. I came on to ask you to double your efforts in love for the sake of somebody else. To do all things in absolute seriousness towards Christ. To remain in the shadow of the Almighty. Because the deceits are being released. And these deceits, there is no discussion of. There is no discussion of it. But I'm telling you, it's going to turn the faith of many upside down. They wanted proof. And we're not talking about UFOs or ETs either. That's not what we're talking about. No. People always gravitate towards those things that they feel are solid with proof. Because it's easier to follow something you can see versus something you cannot see. But we walk by faith and not by sight. And the more people you can extend God's love to, the more hope you distill in others. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about, you will perfectly understand. You will. Let us watch one another too. Listen. Listen for the cry of your brother and your sister in distress. Don't abandon them. Many are going to feel like those who were of Christianity just simply did not love them enough. And by way of a false type of acceptance and love, they will walk away. The same way people join gangs today, so will they walk away from the faith. I 100% do not agree with the timing of what's taking place. Nevertheless, these groups are doing it anyway. It will challenge all of us. All of us. In fact, it's something that many have been looking for. Something many thought they would never see or find. Satan is busy. In the Bible it says, he pursues the remnant. He knows he has but a short time. He's doubling his efforts. Let's double ours. Let's walk closer to Christ. And by way of example, teach others to do the same. By way of support, assist one another in our walk with Christ. With all diligence. Not willing to see somebody just slip and fall into the hands of darkness. But with all of what God put within you, pulling some from the fire. Although I cannot tell you details, you'll know that yourself in no time at all. Don't fall apart. Don't fall apart. Center yourselves in faith, and you will be kept. Remember the cross, and you will be kept. Understand the Lord's gospel. And listen, if you really don't understand the gospel, but you don't want to admit it, right? Then find a Christian in confidence and get the clarity you require. You don't have to do that publicly. And all of you stand by for anybody who would want clarity with the Gospels. And make sure you don't give them your own interpretation, but tell them what the Lord has already said about His Gospel. Anybody who needs help with that, call out on your brothers and sisters for help. Please don't stay in the same predicament, afraid to tell someone you don't know. You need not do that here. The Lord grants wisdom liberally to whoever asks. And He knows we're going to need that wisdom in these hours. I pray you guys assist one another with all diligence. Don't be shaken by what you see, by what you hear, by what you witness, or by what you experience. Stay within that foundation of faith that has delivered you up until this point. And remember, we don't walk by proof. We walk by faith. By confirmation, man cannot pollute the internal knowing God placed within us from the beginning. He is the author and finisher of our faith. You agree to follow Christ, He will keep you all the way. Please don't follow anything else but Christ. The Lord said, "My sheep hear my voice, and a stranger they will not follow." Remember that. Remember, we're not going to agree to see somebody slip from the faith with all of what you are. Plead with Him by way of the heart, and let them know the Lord loves them anyway. Don't condemn them. But also don't be shocked to see people walk away and never turn back to hear you again. And let us be a support system in prayer for one another. Not in criticism, in prayer. Not in casting down, but lifting up. Esteeming each other better than ourselves. Remember mercy, that you'll have mercy. Let nothing shake you up. I pray you guys remember these things. Let nothing shake you up. Please help them. Help those the Lord put on your heart. They'll need it. You may also need it. Folks, God bless and keep you. Always. I'll see you guys later. I just thought I'd tell you that, and I hope you really take that seriously, quickly. Because these groups are not going to slow down. They've decided. It has been decided. And that happened not more than 2 hours ago. You don't need details. You're alive right now. You'll experience all the details. God bless you. The Lord keep you. Always. You know, today some of the scrambling devices, aerial scrambling devices, have been running at breakneck pace. You know what? They're trying to stop the heat. They're trying to stop this heat. They're trying desperately to stop the heat because heat is just not good for facilities. Right now, there's some certain nuclear plants are having issues because of some of the heat. The grounding systems for the nuclear plants have failed. Heat exposes component failure in any large-scale networked facility, right? So that has happened. It's also exposed. Each nuclear facility has a backup generator. This backup generator is very important, keeps the pumps going. And it also controls a very big grounding system. If they fail, well, you have no backup. And the facilities have no choice but to begin to power down or scale back a bit. Well, because of this heat, there are certain facilities that have shown just some numerous weak points, right? Some of the underground pathways of oil, they've also been exposed as having weak points. And water is continuing to evacuate from the bottom of the earth, which means right below your feet is a network of gas lines, water lines, sewer lines, and oil lines. If the water evacuates, the ground begins to shift. Well, there are certain points in these conduits that cannot take the pressure of change. And so what happens with that is you have ruptures in gas. This heat is not going to help it any. You have ruptures in water systems. All sorts of problems begin to happen. And believe it or not, we're starting to see that. This mixed with, it's amazing that nothing is set in a big blaze yet, but that's coming. They have been trying really hard to monitor everything to keep fires down. It's not working. We're getting into the temps where a flashpoint has been reached. It's critical that people keep their eyes on the smallest things regarding fire, because if one hits right down certain places of the world, we're going to be in big trouble. Because you guys know how foolish man can be, how irresponsible we can become as humanity, right? We don't quite watch after ourselves, and there are some crazy people out there that they abandon all caution when they get angry at somebody else and they start doing things. For example, a guy last week, he was angry at his neighbor, and so he set his neighbor's yard on fire. Thank God they came and put that out. That happened in California. If that wouldn't have been caught so quickly, it would have gotten out of control, right? And there we are. So it's a gift of God that these things are happening. Listen, this is just further evidence that God has a timing for all things. There is a timing, there's a purpose, there's a very high reason. Nothing that happens in your life because you believe in Christ is something that's happenstance. You're going to know that very well. Nothing that happens in the earth. You'd be surprised what mankind has attempted and what they have failed to do regarding the earth. The earth needs no defense from us. It doesn't. The earth is almost like a system that's automated to a degree, right? Which is why in fact, there's a conversation up and coming that's going to rock your world, and it's a conversation regarding the North Pole. And it has to do with a mechanism at the North Pole that is somewhat built into the earth. Some unavoidable information that's going to be introduced to the public. Now, the public, I can tell you right now, they're going to say, no, this can't be real, right? And we're not talking about UFOs. We're not talking about life. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a mechanism. And people are going to say, no, that can't be real, right? Until they see the meetings, until they see some of the demonstrations, until they see it with their own eyes, and until the umbrella, I'm going to call it an umbrella, peeks up from the north part of this planet and starts to cover the entire planet. And then people will see. That's when the foolishness is going to stop. And they see, those are days I can't wait till those days come. I can't wait. Here's why. Sometimes men can be foolish in their knowledge, believing the paradigm of other men. When they argue and debate, say what's real and what's not real, and their theories and this, that, and the other. That confuses what could be truth. What everybody can have the truth. The problem is humanity has an imagination. It has gone too far. There are certain things that are sensationalized that seem to be real. They're not. I don't know all things, but of those things I've seen with my own eyes and have experienced myself, well, then I know that thing, right? And I can tell you this, the earth is not what you think it is. It's not. And if the earth is not what you think it is, what about the rest of the planets? All this Darwinism is going to be thrown out the window, right? Clearly, there's going to be evidence of a designer. Ironically, during that time, nobody's going to care. They won't. At that time, they're going to give such credit to the manifestations of that time. They will not think of the living God except to say he is destroying this world, right? That's what they're going to say. It's his fault. We can't have our paradise. And the Lord gave us some warnings. He did. And it has to do with this harvest. There is a time when nobody will have time to change another moment. And we're quickly approaching that time. But what marks that time? It's right there in the Word of God. You can see it. And in fact, it's something that everybody on earth can see all the time without looking at the television. They can see it in their households. They can see it among their children. They can see it if they're a couple. They can see it when they go out in public. They can see it everywhere. And you don't have to look up to see this. It is a component of the end days. Everybody's acquainted with. Everybody has knowledge of. Everybody is also making comments on this very thing. And it's happening all over the world. All over the world. If there have been no other days that have mandated us to pay close attention to things, I tell you, we're in those days right now. And what the Lord set in motion and the signs he gave his children, us, the Christians, they're not hard to see. In fact, all of us have a consensus on one of them. Yet that one is rarely or seldom, if ever, talked about. So God spoke in parables so the fool would not understand, because a fool will not inherit the kingdom of God. And a fool is someone who is willingly ignorant of the truth. That means they know the truth, but they set it aside to look for something more. Right? Simplify your mind. And if you can, simplify your lives. Simplify your lives. Simplify your diet. Simplify everything while you still can. Simplify it. That way when you hear this word, right, it's not going to be something new. It's not going to be something, this phenomenal thing that you can hardly believe. It will be consistent with your faith. It really will. The Lord gave us a clue about these things too, so we have to investigate some of the components around it, right? Because clearly we're in this time, listen, it's gotten to the point now where they're really about, due to the call of war, they need to let people know something. And I can tell you something. When they say what they have to say, war will be at its height. In fact, a war so devastating is coming and forming that in truth, if that war is not cut short, no one would live past that time. The entire earth would be consumed. And this is our time to get some things right in our lives, to do the will of God without reservation or restraint. Right? There was a time a lot of people did not want to do what the Lord put in them to do, because they felt if they did that, they would have to live this miserable life for a bunch of years ahead, right? You don't have a bunch of years. I know that a lot of people take comfort in having a lot of time left, and they begin to rebuke any idea that anything can happen tomorrow. But they easily forget about World War I, World War II. What about those who were in Vietnam? They didn't know all that stuff was coming to their country. What about the times over here in the United States when we were building a nation, all of a sudden two sides began to fight against one another? No one counted on these things. But someone always prophesied about them. There was somebody always there telling people, hey, get yourselves right, something is coming. And it will consume all of us. I can say the same thing for the U.S. Something is... God has blessed this nation of all the nations on earth, all of them. And I can say that above all nations, He has blessed this one greatly. There will come a time when those clouds, you see, the trillions of tons of water above your head suspended by way of the atmosphere called clouds. That will drop. That will drop. And when it drops, it's going to cause some issues. But that won't be the core issue of any flooding, ironically. It seems like it would be, right? And it is true the AADL values have gone up significantly since last year, giving the clouds more of a capability of holding moisture water droplets. And when it's hot like this, infrared heat is just pounding the ground during the high angles of the day. And the ground heats up, releasing the moisture in it. As those hot water droplets with the infrared heat is reflected back up into the atmospheres. If a cold front happens to swing through, it condenses, causing rain. So that's what's happening all over the U.S. right now. All over the U.S., this is happening. In fact, the current map is quite startling, right? For those who are... who have a little foresight as far as, those meteorological things, you see that the vast majority of the moisture is all-inclusive. It's not very good. So because our temperature is going to rise a bit more, we're still, even at the high angle of the day over the U.S., we're still off about 20 degrees as far as direct sunlight. When we align with the sun, as far as direct sunlight, as much as we can get, that temperature is going to rise on an average of about 10 degrees everywhere, which is going to give one of those mean values of about 0.2 degrees. That's all we need for some very large-scale weather events, right? That means the temperature is going to be in a variety of, there's going to be in an assortment over the U.S. for a while. Well, on the earth, you have certain states that are of a different type soil, different reflectivity rating than other states. Some states have a lot of grass. That doesn't reflect very well. It holds heat. Some states have a lot of rock and things like that. That rocks will hold a lot more heat than grass will, right? But it also reflects infrared heat. Certainly in the when the sun begins to drop, when you hit that point where it's really hot, and in your grass areas, your humidity is up. All that together causes atmospheric disturbances, right? All of it together. And so this process, as it continues with raised temperatures, is going to have a myriad of effects regarding our weather, which is going to become quite extreme. Quite extreme. And I really do wish I could speak about the North Pole, but I can't. But the North Pole, you may as well say the North Pole is a weather maker. May as well say that. Not because, water evaporates there. It's because the North Pole is extremely special. One day you'll know this for yourselves. It is extremely special. And without the North Pole, we would have zero weather, period. We don't need ice at the North Pole to have weather. Without the North Pole, right, we would not have weather, period. Not because of the North Pole itself, but because of something located there. We just wouldn't have weather. We wouldn't have clouds. We wouldn't. How do we know this? Because on every other planet, the same thing is there too. In fact, it's on all the planets with an atmosphere. You can find the exact same thing. It's obscured, yes. But there's a reason why certain planets have thick atmospheres and other planets do not. The Earth is, well, it's a little different than maybe you think. In fact, if you learn the truth, it angers you. Not because they're lying, right? Because that's not what they're doing. They're not lying. They're just not telling a truth with all components. They're telling you portions of a truth and causing you not to believe any portions that may come about. They're having you follow the path that they want because they have a goal to all of this. When I found out that formulas didn't quite match up in calculus, right, that they were, in physics, they come up with these constants out of the air. Where'd you get that from? Then you find that they're compensating for things they don't know. In biology, certain things do not make sense. So with evolution, I don't believe. Then we learned about the guy that came up with evolution when he went to an island. He was a man at the church. He made declarations against Christianity. He vowed to tear down the entire institution of believers in Christ. When you hear about a person like this, how can you accept what they say? Then they read his books, his notes, and through his hatred, he said he was going to make it work, quote, he was going to make it work. Even the great scientists right now, they don't believe in evolution. They don't. They do not believe in evolution. They don't. The more they learn, they realized it's not real. That's what they realized. And when they dug up with archaeology, they found out this is not the first time we reached this height in society. We are on the lower scale. They were more advanced the further you go back. What they introduced to the public is right after a cataclysm, when everything is ruined. That's what they show to everybody else. Ruins. They never show them what it was before the ruins. And when all these things are known, when they're all known, those who advocated for these things are going to feel quite foolish. That's like these folks that are waiting for this UFO report to come out. And I really do hope that nobody is boasting. See, I told you it was real. You got to watch these small interactions that people do. They're being guided. They're not just coming out with this information on their own. Nobody just found out about ATAT. Nobody found out about that stuff. They purposely told the public that because they were pulling the plug on it. President Trump said might as well. That's why they did it. That's why they're sharing the stories. But if you listen closely, you're going to find out something. That these guys who had these interactions, not with the craft, but you're going to hear stories about the interactions with actual entities. Number one, they called them dream walkers. Because to confront one of these things is like you being in a dream. So it's very difficult to be in the presence of these things and keep your sanity. Number two, they're inherent liars. They lie all the time. They have lied since day one. And number three, people who have dealt with him, institutions who have dealt with him have been warned not to deal with him. Don't deal with the ones that are here. Leave them alone. They're liars, inherent liars. Why do you think the military has kept everything secret? Because listen, it's one thing to develop their technology. Do they have technology from these things? Of course. They find this stuff all the time. Some of the craft that people have seen way back in the past, right, that were flying all over the place and they couldn't really, it looked like they were zigzagging all this. That's because they didn't have the technology to control the bursts it took to keep these things airborne. You might as well call them magnetic bursts. But it's not magnetic, it's something else, but they're bursts. They do that through a type burst technology. Think of a ball, right? On the ball, there are possibly 2 million jets, right? Each jet fires controlling the direction of a craft. That's how it operated. But they couldn't control all the bursts. You can't do that manually, right? That's why it was all over the place. That's why people died trying to recreate this. And then they found out that the ships were not just made out of material. That's why they find a lot of fossilized ships and technology. How do you have fossilized technology and ships? Because they were made out of living material. Something horrible was going on in the past. Something you don't really want to know about. People are curious. And then when they find out the truth, they're going to regurgitate in their mouths. But once you learn, you cannot unlearn. God is so gracious, right? People are mad that they keep secrets. All you have to know is one secret thoroughly about these things, and you'll fall to your knees and say, Lord, thank you for making me blind to the other stuff. I don't want to know it. I don't want that in my mind, and have to deal with that. No. I'm going to give you guys a quick example. You ready for this? A tear has pleasure in unrighteousness. God's children do not. And the more you grow in the Lord, the more disgusted you are with yourself. So listen to me carefully, all of you who feel like you have failed. It is impossible for a tear to feel like they have failed. Only God's people can feel that way. Because those who feel like they failed desire to do more. Or else you don't feel like you failed. A tear has no sorrow in their faith failures. They have sorrow that they are discovered. They have sorrow that they cannot corrupt your life. They have sorrow that they can't hammer you into the ground. They get angry when they can't accuse you. That's what they get mad over. Haven't you noticed? Tears love to accuse, and they get angry when they cannot. You know what they say to themselves? I got to find something wrong with everybody. They hunger for it. They hunger to destroy. That's a form of destruction. That's a form of murder. And if a person desires to murder, then their father is the devil, just like Jesus told those Pharisees. He said, I've done nothing and you seek to kill me. He said, your father is of the devil and the will of your father you will do. And Satan was a murderer from the beginning. You see that? That's not who you are. You struggle, yes. If you were a tear, you wouldn't struggle. You would deceive. You would love your sin. You would play a role among the saints. But a time was always coming when they would no longer play that role. They would start stepping out of their closet. They would say, look, I just don't believe in Christ, like some of these pastors have done. You see, you're right at the precipice of a massive time of confusion. The time when men will say, well, I thought God would do this and I thought God would do that. People are going to be let down big time because things didn't happen in their timing. And I'm asking you, don't. Understand these processes, the simple processes. The time you're in right now, this generation that you're in right now, will likely be one of the greatest times for the true saints and for those who are called, and one of the most violent times for everybody else. The Sand King has awakened. I cannot talk about that, but I can tell you that was a day ago. The Sand King has awakened. Something is starting, and it will catch people off guard. I'm just doing my part. My part to encourage you to always understand that when things are revealed, it's okay to have had it wrong. Be ready to follow Christ no matter what you see, what you hear. I don't care if an entire city blows up. Turn your whole face and your whole body towards Christ. Don't doubt him. Understand this, that many people have tried to dictate what would happen in the last days. Some things are going to be out of order. Some things are going to appear to be not what you were taught. Don't worry about that. Don't go back and look at the person and say, well, they didn't know what they were talking about. Stop that. Face Christ. Just walk forward and say, Lord, as you reveal, grant me the strength to follow you. Because in truth, that's what you want to do, is to follow Christ. But an upset is coming. A real moment is coming. A real time. This is not a joking time. This is a real time. There are real consequences. Trying times. For the saints, it's going to be trying by way of your eyes. Listen to me. The hardest time that you've had in your life is because you saw it a specific way. You were upsetting your life because of how you saw something. Make sure that your eye is single, one and the same with the eyes of the Lord. Many people are looking for a massive revealing. They're going to wish they hadn't seen it. That's going to be a time of confusion like no other. It's very difficult to talk about that time because most of what people believe, well, for those who have been in certain aspects and areas of it, right? We're not talking about researchers. We're talking about those who have had a life in it. Things are a little different. Those men will start to come forward with warnings. I hope you don't blow them off. These men are terrified on a consistent basis. These men don't look well because they don't sleep. These men can't go back to a peaceful life, except for the ones who have Christ. It breaks people to know these things. You have a lot of people who want to see it. They want to see stuff. They want to see things. I hope that your heart in this moment can focus towards Christ. You will see things, but it won't be in your timing. It's not going to be when you're ready for it. It's going to be when you're not ready. It's going to be well before any anticipated time.
They have built a special modeling piece of equipment there. They need to know how the clouds are going to be affected by what's coming. And the only way to do that is with what they have at CERN. They need precise measurements. They need accurate forecasting. They cannot tolerate a mistake at this point. They are desperately trying to find out exactly what they will need and when they need to go, wherever they go, at a specific time. And that's one of those critical things. Listen, this has people really upset. They've been upset for a couple of years now. They can't sleep. They can't eat. They can't do anything. They're worried about some conditions that are coming. And,
well, when you say something's coming, I mean, are we talking now the binary system that brings this massive changes to the solar system that we're in?
Well, if you notice, those massive changes that were somewhat elusive in the last past years are becoming quite evident now. It's not some fluke in the weather. That's not what it is. We're having consistent changes. It's a consistent and persistent buildup of weather changes that we are experiencing, not only on Earth, but this is echoed throughout all the planets, right? And it's uncovering things also. They're getting to a point where, well, it's uncovering things. I'll probably mention that the last thing of the show, but these changes are starting to show many things that were hidden before. You said the powers of heaven shall be shaken, and men's hearts failing them for fear for looking after those things which are coming upon the earth. Well, if they're looking after those things, they know about them.
Yep.
And it's bothering them, it's messing them up, right?
Yep.
So the elite know about these things, and it's messing them up. Have you looked at their faces lately?
Yeah, they look bad.
A lot of people think the elitists are just these proud people walking around. Let me tell you something. They have no spiritual protection. They're scared to death. To them, everything is doom unless they walk that tight line. They don't care. They're stuck in a bad position. It's not that they enjoy killing, Pastor Paul. They have no choice. If they don't do what they're told, all right, they know what the ending is going to be. And believe it or not, they have to recruit other people on a continuous basis, or they pay the price.
Wow.
They can be sent into insanity almost immediately. That's making a deal with the real king of the earth, because they have to see him every second term, which is unfortunate. Anyway, that'll come out by itself. The other one was the powers of heaven shall be shaken.
Right.
If the powers of heaven are shaken at that time, this is before the coming of Christ.
Right.
Pastor Paul, that means for all this time, the powers of heaven have been held. They've been held.
Right.
If they're being shaken, then that means they're almost like let loose. They're here's my belief. I'm just giving my belief. Man cannot do what he wants to do on this planet. No volcano, no anything can just blow by itself.
No.
I believe, no, I'll say more than believe, and people are going to think I'm cuckoo, but it's just the way I am. I know that everything is managed by those God placed over this world to watch it, right? Everything is managed.
And you said at the end, you're going to tell us uncovering things. But before you do, urgent message. The urgent message you put out, and I heard it. I never heard it sounded as if you came across or just received brand new intel, and you were putting a warning out there so strong on that. Can you tell us a little more about why this message was so urgent?
Pastor, when I got on air, right before I got on air, I was in the company of some folks, and I was brought to review a couple things to get my opinion. That happens from time to time, and about people of faith, extremely concerned about people of faith. But when I saw what I saw, I did not see the people of faith being in a position strong enough to even get through this. And so I had to go into instant prayer for my own strength first, because how in the world, in a world that we live in where so many things are hidden, so many things are secret, so many things are out of the view of the average individual, where Christians are still vulnerable to one another, how in the world do you encourage them and say, listen, if you don't turn your face towards Christ, you will not survive by way of the soul, flesh, or anything else. You will be utterly consumed. And how do you tell a person that? To do that quickly, right? When you can't prove it. You can't go and show them anything.
Was this something they showed?
Out certain people.
Was this something they showed you that was coming up on the earth, or was this something that man was going to do to man?
Often I hear the rhetoric and demonstrations of foreigners.
Okay.
Often I hear certain plans that we have concerning those foreigners. And often things, on occasion, things come about that are almost incredible to accept. And I'm not talking about a UFO or ET. I'm not talking about those things. No, I'm talking about things that would rattle a Christian to the core. See, it's kind of like when the History Channel first came out with their stories about these biblical tales. And they came out with they were talking about that cup of Christ's blood.
Yeah.
And they equated that to Christ having a wife and children. Well, that rattled the faith of so many Christians. In fact, Pastor Paul, that day, it's almost like my heart dropped that day.
Right.
Because I'm not afraid to watch this stuff, but I know that people can't, it's very difficult for them to bridle their own. You know, the word says if a man can't bridle his own tongue, that man's religion is vain. So if a person does not have self-control, then their spirit is barely standing, right? And so you have so many Christians who fly off the handle, they target one another, this, that, and the other. I know for a fact, with certain archaeological presentations, I'm talking about a presentation of presentations, a demonstration of demonstrations. The world's going to see some things. And Christians, how in the world are they going to make it through? Because they're constantly looking for proof. And if they don't begin to operate purely by faith now without proof, to stop this ideology, well, show me and then I'll believe it, but simply believe the word of Christ now. I mean in full, not speculate about it, but believe it. If they don't do that, begin to walk in that faith right now today, because God has been gracious giving us time, they're just not going to make it, because I perceive there's some very strong people out there that are going to be brought forward from this. But Pastor, there are millions that will fall away from this. This is a breaking point coming, a faith breaking point.
So it's coming soon.
I can't even describe it, Pastor. I can't even.
It's coming soon.
There's no way to communicate the magnitude of this and what it will cause. I'm just telling you right now, as a person, I don't have weak faith. I just don't have weak faith. Even to the point of death, I don't have weak faith. I don't cry for myself, right? I don't do that. This made me say, how in the world, Father, what can anybody say? What can we say if a person does not have that security in Christ? If they didn't build the relationship and do it for real, if they didn't sit down and evaluate themselves with Christ, if they're playing in any way with their salvation,
well, you know,
they're going to be easily
it's
turned.
true. And the Bible says Paul said to live as Christ, to die as gain. Uncovering things. Can you tell us what you mean by that?
Yeah, as Pastor, as we continue to see a change of forces of this planet, and as just like the meteorologists making up new names for some of the weather phenomena, because they have to, different forces are being shown. You know, people see brand new potentials from thunderstorms and from hurricanes and from tornadoes and from, like, the average storm today that spanned from San Diego all the way to New York. That was one storm, not multiple storms. That was one storm. And the weight of water it was dropping was, well, it was one of those impossible things, but it did so anyway. And it formed yesterday also because of the heat. And we're supposed to go up 10 more degrees all throughout the U.S. 10 more degrees is a disaster regarding thunderstorms and things like that. We can't.
Hail.
Well, we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out. It's also going to increase the wind speeds. So it's going to expose more and more vulnerabilities. As we continue to go through this, you're looking at a lot of ice is melting right now. Well, that ice is uncovering quite a few things.
Yeah.
As it uncovers, you're going to find out that Google Maps, unless they have an agreement with the people, and I know that they're rushing the disclosure because things cannot be covered up, they're going to have to explain what's being uncovered. Now, I'm not talking about a pyramid.
No.
I'm talking about the earth itself is being uncovered. The earth is being uncovered. And as it's being uncovered, so the rest of the planet's being uncovered. And there are things being noticed right now with these other planets, with people who have the optics. They're looking at specifically the poles of these planets in a brand new way. And they're noticing something that none of the explanations cover. And they're about to find out the earth is no different than them. It is the exact same thing, which changes how everybody's going to see this world, right? It's going to change everything. We're not going to see the world as the books taught us anymore. We're not going to see the moon that way because it too will, well, it's going to unmask itself.
And part of that's because the pole is shifting. Part of that is because the ice is melting.
We have a lot of ice covering things up. We have a lot of on the moon. You have a lot of dust. You have a lot of that regolith that's all over the place. That regolith is going to be shifted. It's going to expose what's underneath the regolith. And of course, it's just not going to, it's going to be quite visible and shiny. On the moon, you have a bunch of craters where purportedly you had meteor impacts, correct? Why do they have flat bottoms? You don't have a meteor impact with a flat bottom, right?
No.
That's impossible. That's ridiculous.
No.
It's not we sent a nuclear bomb up there, did we not? To explode it on the surface of the moon. It echoed for 6 days. Why does it echo for 6 days? And yes, water came up, and guess what happened to the regolith? The regolith, when it blew out, regolith from miles around came inland and covered up that spot where the bomb hit. How did that crater get covered up from that explosion, right? During Obama's presidency, how did it get covered up? Because everybody that night was looking, everybody was trying to see what it was. And how did the regolith move? What somebody have a broom up there? What happened? So anyway.
Cloaking. Are you talking cloaking?
Well, as these conditions change, things are going to be uncovered. People will start to see to a lot of people, it's going to be fearful because, for example, this is just an example. If the moon is not what people thought it was, how many people on the earth are going to be fearful?
A lot.
The vaccine. How many people had a heart attack because of the vaccines, because of COVID-19? There are people who were scared to death of COVID-19, the vaccines, to the point where they had heart attacks. If the moon is uncovered, their mind is going to go to some extraterrestrial zone. They're going to start imagining what could potentially happen. If the earth is uncovered, They're not going to believe a word any of these scientists have ever said. They're not going to believe the government, which is why all government entities are coming forward saying, hey, this is what we have. They have to do that, because if they don't, they're going to lose face with the populace, and nobody will believe them again. And if that were to take place, then you would have anarchy in the streets, because once confidence is lost in the government on a massive scale, then it's anarchy the same day.
Yeah, once the genie's out of the bottle, you're not going to put it back in. Mike, you still blew my mind that hundreds of miles into the earth, there's lavatories. I mean, you'll have to talk about that next week, because I'm sitting around still having a migraine over that. I mean,
a lot of people think that pressure is too much pressure down there. No, there's so many cavities in the earth, Pastor Paul, you wouldn't believe just what's been mapped underneath the East Coast. You wouldn't believe what's been mapped underneath the East Coast. What's underneath the ocean, you wouldn't believe it on the East Coast. It's a honeycomb system throughout the East Coast that is vast, enormous, and very deep, very deep. So, that's just part of it. But I'm sure that as the days go forward and certain things are declassified and they drop the penalty of secrecy in certain areas, we'll be able to see some more things. Without, no speculation, there'll be actual things. But I think that'll help people a lot to really get their minds in the right position and say, okay, let me stop playing around and theorizing, and let me walk this straight and narrow. Because I'll say it again, Pastor, the Sand King, he's walking right now. I'll say that. The Sand King is walking right now. He's walking. They made a decision a few days ago. All countries did. And things will go forward. So look for massive changes, certainly in policy. It'll have to happen. Look for massive changes in policy.
The Sand King is walking.
He's walking.
The governments have made a decision. We got to talk about that next week. We got to talk about that. Mike?
Yeah, I think we'll see some evidence towards that.
Okay, and good. That'll help us understand what you mean by that and what that means for all of us in these end times. People better give their life to Jesus Christ, because the game, look, it's running out of time, and the Lord is coming. And that's what Mike is trying to share with us, that time is running out, and the events that we're going to see will shake us to our core if we don't have Christ. Mike, can we see you next week here, same time?
Yes, sir, Pastor Paul. Play that song again, Give This World Back to God. That's my new favorite song, by the way.
All right.
That's it.
That's it.
That is an awesome song.
Well, all right. We'll play it. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it.
Well, God bless you, Pastor.
God bless. All right, folks. That's once again Mike from around the world with another earth-shaking evening of information.